Welcome to War and Pandemic, live from Fort Defiance. We're on Capitol Hill, right across from the Supreme Court and near the plaza, which our nation's capital rests. It is Monday, 23 March, the year of our Lord 2020. We're about to determine sometime today whether this is the third Black Monday in a row. But it's like that. I think right now they've told me this the worst 30 days are the worst March since 1931 on the stock market. I don't think we're quite to it's the worst March since 1931. We're already equivalent in 1929 already. I think 32 or 33% of the value of the New York Stock Exchange, all the equity markets, I should say, shredded in this, which has come up, I think, to $15 trillion in the U.S., private companies, public companies, $25 trillion worldwide. And that's not even including the bond market, the credit markets, the derivatives markets, add up all the other way that you have liquidity and trading in the world. Pretty devastating. We're now on the John Fredericks Radio Network on Dish 219, America's Voice. I want to thank the guys in Colorado for helping us co-produce a show with John Fredericks. Newsmax TV, you can see us, I think, at 11 o'clock at night on a replay. And they do a pretty good job on the show, right? So I really appreciate Chris Redding, the team at Newsmax. Plus 99.1, 103.9 in Chicago. Now you're listening and paying attention to us. You guys around St. Patty's Day were out partying, but got your attention. I want to thank Steve Cortez, all the guys out there. And, of course, worldwide everywhere. So, and now in China, subtitled in Mandarin. We're waiting. We're trying to get Maria Luisa Rossi Hawkins on phone there. She's totally tied up. She's the number one correspondent from Mediaset, which is Berlusconi's TV group. If we can't get her, we're going to get Raheem Kassam here to join us. Don't know if we can do both at the same time. Let's go to, well, we got some. I want to play start at the beginning of my thing with Maria, and we'll go. This is my interview with Maria Bartiromo yesterday.
Strategy. But I think, and if you listen to Paul Bedard, I think it was at the Washington Examiner, said there was discussion starting about a much tougher, a much tougher solution that got us there quicker. I don't think we have months to do this. I think what should happen, and my recommendation would be to kind of dovetail with President Trump's action, and get it done yesterday, is to drop the hammer. Don't mitigate the virus. Don't spread the curve. Shatter the curve and go full hammer on the virus right now with a full shutdown. Use the stimulus to kind of bridge that economic crisis. It may take $2 trillion. It may take $3 trillion to force cash into the little entrepreneur and to the little guy. And you do that. You got Steve Cortez has got a plan. Eric Bolling's got a plan. Bernie Marcus's Job Creators Networks has a plan of forcing cash into the system. That bridges us. Whether it takes 2 weeks or 4 weeks, we get through hard and fast. And on the capital market side, you basically do what Kevin Warsh and Janet Yellen and Ben Bernanke are arguing for in the Financial Times and Wall Street Journal, which is merge the balance sheet of the Fed and the Treasury and use that as a lender of last resort to actual corporations. What the ECB and the Bank of England have been doing, we turned that balance sheet to save all the big companies. Okay, you save Boeing, you save the airline industry, you save all the big investment grade credits. You then solve the liquidity crisis strategy.
So I did that without any Red Bulls either. That was just a normal Sunday morning.
Good.
Not too shabby. You write it down and I'll repeat it. I'm not a bad actor. I just want to note that Jack Maxey did not make the 10. There was a 10 o'clock call. It was a call here for the team at 9:30. Jack Maxey was doing research.
I slept through that dip.
Yeah, no. This is Jack needed to take a rest. Okay, I want to bring Raheem Kassam on. I don't think we've got Maria yet. You'll let me know when we get Maria. Raheem Kassam joins us from a remote location in the bunker. Raheem, give us your assessment. You've been part of this from the very beginning. I've asked you, and you've done a great job of helping us focus on all of Europe and the EU in particular. But I want to ask you my role yesterday and where that plays because, and Jason, jump in here. You saw, I think it was Jonathan Swan, who's very well sourced in the West Wing. Had this thing on Axios this morning, right, that said that the Trump team prepares for a pivot. That's what last night was about. That was the tweet was about. That's the Daily Mail's about. They're preparing for a pivot. So how do you view this? Where do you stand on this?
Well, look, I think the president's team is under increasing amounts of pressure at the moment from a lot of the free market types talking about the economy. And that's not to say that we're obviously not concerned about that as well, but this is a unique situation. And of course, as you set out on the Sunday shows yesterday with Maria Bartiromo, this is something that we want to get over more quickly in full than drag on. Now, remember, a couple of weeks ago, we had people saying, look, it's just the flu. There's nothing to worry about. Hospitals will manage. Life will go on. It's become very clear that, especially in certain pockets in the United States and indeed across Europe, life has not gone on, or life has not been able to go on. Hospitals, infrastructures are collapsing. Supply lines are strained, and I'll bring you all the latest from Europe in just a moment, which examples all of that. They went from it's just the flu to we can't take this economic hit right now. Now, that's not to say that they're wrong in worrying about the state of the economy. They're not wrong in worrying that perhaps the elites will be too quick to try and shut things down while it's not them that are going to be without paychecks for the next few months. Those things are rational and reasonable concerns. What's not rational and reasonable, as far as I can see and as far as I can tell at the moment, are the people who are saying, look, this hasn't metastasized in terms of the number of deaths that some of the worst doomsayers, as they say, have been predicting, and therefore we should just abandon everything, all the social distancing right now. This thing has a set time lag built into it, as people who have been following this for a long time know. It has a time lag because the testing takes time. It has a time lag because of there are areas in certain parts of the world, in certain parts of first world economies, where tests take a longer time to administer. I was watching a video this morning about the National Health Service in the United Kingdom and how there are these pockets in the United Kingdom which just don't have a hospital to service the local population. And so all of this stuff is contributing to the fact that we don't have enough data in real time to make a decision 7 days into a 15-day period of lockdown to say, oh, we should return to normalcy. That's a manifest nonsense, and we should be pushing back against that as much as possible. On the other hand, yes, we absolutely are concerned about not throwing the baby out with the bathwater on this thing, and that's why you went up there yesterday and said, hey, look, here's an economic plan to bounce back. This isn't about just ending the economy for the time being and then worrying about it when we come back. No, we must have the plan to come back. And yours and Eric Bolling's plan and Steve Cortez's plan makes a lot of sense.
Give us an update on Europe, where we stand, particularly places like the UK, in France, who have been kind of half in, half out. We're going to get Maria on, we hope in a second, give us an update on Italy, but you can take that too. Give us, like Boris Johnson, the other nations that have kind of now become the new China, where it's exploding all over. Where do they stand on actually getting control of this?
Well, there are now 20 French mayors who have issued curfews across the country. France increasingly taking this seriously. Macron's poll numbers actually going up the more strict he gets in the measures of this, which goes to show just how seriously the French public are taking this as well. They've had an uptick over the course of the weekend of another 112 deaths, 16,000 cases in France. And interestingly, one of the buried things that are out there, remember last week I came on here and I said over the phone that France were talking about imposing fines of about $150 for people who were out on the streets and couldn't give a good reason. One statistic, and it's yet to be corroborated, but it is from a reliable source, but I'm double checking on it because it seems very high. One statistic says 90,000 fines have been issued so far since that rule came in last week. That's about $13 million worth of fines, I believe. If they're all reaching the $150 mark of people who have been out on the streets without good reason to be out there. So the French increasingly taking this seriously. The Spanish have had a seriously bad weekend for this as well. Deaths now over 2,000 in Spain, 462 coming just over the last 24 hours. That's an increase that they've seen of over 27% in a total of 33,000 cases. They have 2,355 people in intensive care. And interestingly as well from Spain, 12% of the people who are infected, who are believed to be infected, are healthcare workers at the moment. The Germans also taking this much more seriously over the weekend. A $900 million economic package, including direct cash injections, was announced, loan guarantees. The self-employed will receive 15,000 euros over the period of 3 months. and they could also impose fines on people who are not going out. Who are going out and shouldn't be. They're still discussing that right now. The ban on gatherings in Germany has extended to no more than 2 people in a particular place at a particular time in terms of social gatherings. And Angela Merkel, of course, the chancellor there, has been quarantined herself after being treated by a doctor who themselves tested positive for the coronavirus. The interesting thing about Germany's situation is that the death toll is far lower in terms of percentage of total cases. They have a death rate of about 0.4% in Germany compared to Italy's 9%, France's 4.5%, the UK's 5.3%, Switzerland's 7.4%, and Spain's 5.4%. And they say the reason for that is that they're actually testing everyone. They're testing as many people as possible. They have capacity to perform 160,000 tests per week, they say. And the median age, therefore, in Germany of patients is 46 versus Italy's 63 and the United Kingdom's 64. Now, in the UK, you've had about nearing 6,000 cases now. There is talk, as I suggested last week, now of a further lockdown in the United Kingdom. They're taking this much more seriously. We're looking at a maybe curfew situation. The government is due to pass legislation today. Army trucks have been drafted in to distribute supplies, masks, etc. to hospitals. And Nicola Sturgeon, the Scottish National Party leader, making an interesting observation today, says builders are still on building sites. Hairdressers are still in hair salons. And she says that can't be the case anymore. Stores like WH Smith, which is a national retailer, sells newspapers and sweets and goods and things like that. They've stopped taking cash now in the United Kingdom. And also fuel retailers have dropped the price significantly by up to $10 per tank full on average in the United Kingdom. So everywhere is cracking down right now. So there is some good news. Germany says it's kind of starting to flatten. We'll see if that plays out.
Can we we just got Maria Luisa. She can only stay for the rest of the segment, which is a couple of minutes. I want to just bring her in. We're going to hold you over for the next segment. Maria Luisa Rossi Hawkins from Mediaset. Can you give us a quick update on Italy?
Yeah, well, the situation is not a good one. 651 people died yesterday, which is about 110 less than the day before. What we're witnessing right now is a sense of desperation among people that are being quarantined for weeks now with no sensible results. The problem right now is it's getting worse in the south. People are fleeing northern cities, and they're not complying with the government rules of the shutdown, which were proclaimed about 6 weeks ago. So there is a sense of desperation about people in the cities of Rome and neighboring townships. Lines are getting longer at supermarkets. People are spending between 1 and 1.5 hours to get a liter of milk. People that have witnessed World War II, and I'm talking about the older generation, of which we have many people still in Italy, are telling me that it's just like it was after World War II when they were standing in line to get some bread, and then at the end of the line there was no bread. So it's a situation that is unsustainable, untenable for many Italians, while in northern Italy a lot of doctors are dying. And Italy's in desperate need of physicians, medical equipment. There was someone who...
We've got to jump, Maria. We've got to jump for a commercial break. Can you stay over? I know you're pressed for time. If you can stay over, I'd love to have you over. Otherwise, I got to jump for a commercial break. Maria Luisa Rossi Hawkins, a report from Italy, will return, hopefully with her in just a moment.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Episode 67, we're live from Capitol Hill. I want to go right back to our guest, Maria Luisa Rossi Hawkins from Mediaset, the Berlusconi network there. She's, I think, the top reporter in Italy. Maria Luisa, you left us with a pretty dramatic that saying, because so many people in the United States remember that kind of iconic campaign in Italy, and then what Italy, Rome, the Vatican, what everything looked like, the decimation of Monte Cassino, all of that after World War II. For you to sit there and say, hey, the greatest generation in Italy, the people that were there and fought there, say that this devastation is as bad as after World War II. What do you mean by that?
I mean that at that time, people that I'm interviewing on the phone and in person were telling me that the Americans were coming, that there was hope, that somewhere along the line, someone would come with a saving message. Now, no one's coming. Italy is feeling the weight of a situation that worsens day by day, and no one can help. What we do see is the greatest generation feeling helpless and giving comparisons to something that another generation, the younger generation, has never seen before. The situation getting worse and worse. The virus is spreading from northern Italy to southern Italy. As we've discussed before in your show, Steve, northern Italy serves as a hub for sanitary, for hospitals, for transplants. It is a center of excellence for all of Italians and all of Europe to go to. Once that system collapsed, which it did several weeks ago, now things are slowly moving to the south of Italy that does not have the same resources. So to that extent, people are waiting for something to happen, waiting for doctors to come about, waiting for equipment to arrive. This equipment doesn't come. The government is not helping. What we see is a sentiment of distress, but moreover, we see helplessness. And this is the worst kind of feeling that any nation could feel. 21 doctors died in the last week and a half. There is no end in sight to the epidemic. I know that the Italian government asked the Pentagon for help. Hopefully the bases in Aviano will serve as a hub for regular patients so that patients with coronavirus in Italy can be treated in the northern regions. But the rules and regulations, Steve, and I appeal to the Americans that are listening, must be listened to. We need to comply with government rules. Otherwise, we will see no end to this. I have seen it in Italy. We have discussed it. People need to stay home. They didn't do it. They kept going around. They kept meeting. They kept going to church services. They kept gathering, and the virus spread. And once it spread, you can't stop it. So this is a campaign that we're working on right now, but I'm afraid for some regions of Italy, for some patients, for many doctors, for many elderly, it's just too late.
Can I ask, I want to jump in. The Jerusalem Post had a story about an Israeli doctor, I think, had volunteered to go over and to assist and was helping. And he said, hey, this myth that it's just 80-year-old people, he says, now we're in a position because of the lack of ICU units, ventilators, respirators, all that the cutoff now is 60 years old. So anybody above 60 is just kind of written off. What's the status of that?
Well, my own field reports say an even worsening data than that, Steve. I know of a lot of people in their 40s and 50s in ICUs, whether they have pre-existing conditions, whether the virus is more virulent. In certain cases, this is something that needs to be discussed at the medical level. What I can tell you, having talked to nurses, having talked to doctors, and I do that every day when they come home exhausted and they talk to me, is that the younger and younger people are being hospitalized with this virus. Yes, we do have an aging situation. Yes, the elderly position in Italy is a particularly delicate one because often they stay home and they serve as a social network for parents that work and for grandkids that go away and come back. But younger and younger people are falling ill. And this is what's worrying the sanitary gota of the Italian government. This is what's very worrisome. And of course, these data haven't come out yet. The alarming situation is that ICUs are filled with 40-year-olds. And to a certain extent, there are a lot of kids between the ages of 20 and 25 which are ill. We still don't know whether, as I said, the virus is particularly virulent in certain parts of Italy, and this is a medical question. What we do know is that the situation is dire, even for the younger generation, not just for the 80-year-olds.
Maria Luisa, this is Jack. I really feel for you guys over there. I know we've talked a lot about this, and particularly the doctors is discouraging. France just had 3 doctors die recently as well. Two questions that I have for you. Number one, because it's going to affect us, and you said that people are waiting in line for food now, so obviously there's distribution issues, perhaps even getting food from the fields issues. Right. If you could talk about that, because trucking is looking like an issue here in the United States, and then secondarily, if you could talk about whether or not you've heard anything of the use of chloroquine in the treatment of some of these patients in Italy. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jack. Yes, the issue of distribution of food in Italy is particularly important in cities like Rome and like Milan. As of yesterday, the government has shut everyone in, so much so that people can only go out for food and can only do so at certain hours. The police will literally pick them up, check their documents, and send them back in if they do not have documentation that allows them to go to supermarkets or to stores. But once they go to the supermarkets, and they're very long, I know of people that have traded in their Gucci wallets for an extra liter of milk. And I know that that milk comes back to an elderly patient or to an elderly person and is put in the hallway because that person cannot even touch the person that has brought the milk to them. So it is, as I discussed with Steve before, it is a situation that reminds a lot of people of World War II. But the distribution line is failing. And one other thing that I want to say, the internet system is failing too. Slower and slower transmission. So the communication is not as fast as it should be. So that people are not aware of what's going on, and the concentration, the density of the population makes it so that this communication is particularly essential. Going back to food, Jack, yes, it is a problem. Supermarkets will stay and will remain open, but the stores are empty. Italy has been going through this for about 6 weeks now, 7 weeks, and there is a sense of preoccupation that there might not be the kind of sustainment that the nation needs in order to go on. And we're not even discussing, Jack, the economic ramifications of this, which are devastating.
What about the malaria drug, Jack? What's the name?
Chloroquine. Have you heard any use of that clinically in Italy?
Of course. I don't think that Italy is experimenting this yet. They're being particularly slow into even reporting the news. And I know Jack has talked to me about it. Dr. Hatfield has spoken of it, and I, of course, have talked about it to the Italian public. But there is a sense of alarmism about anything that might be bad news or false promises, rather, for the Italian public. So I don't think Italians have tested it yet. The news of the anti-malaria drug comes from France, but I do not believe that it's being implemented, it's being used or experimented in the Italian public. The Italians keep working on a vaccine. I know they're experimenting the antiviral drug against rheumatoid arthritis. They did so in the hospitals in Naples, but no anti-malaria drug has been put to the test for the Italian public yet. There isn't much therapeutic hope in terms of coronavirus. What we're dealing with right now is an emergency of doctors, of people dying, of people being brought to churches, dumped, as a doctor discussed with me last night. He said to me, families are dumping their patients in front of hospitals that are not really hospitals. They're just empty stores, and they're watching their coffins go to the morgue the day after. So this is the situation we're dealing with, but what we need to do, obviously, is to give the kind of hope, therapeutic hope, that only drugs, only science can bring to the Italian people right now, Steve.
Maria Luisa Rossi Hawkins, thank you very much. We follow this very closely, and we really appreciate you doing all the great reporting. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Maria.
I want to go back to the Surgeon General of the United States. What did he say this morning on the Today Show? Unprompted.
That this is going to be a very tough week.
And about the difference between China and the trend line in the United States between China and Italy. He comes down on what side?
He says that New York is trending toward Italy.
This is not Stephen K. Bannon. This is not Jack Maxey. This is not Jason Miller. This is the Surgeon General of the United States. says the exact same thing we're saying. When you just look at the actions that were taken, the kind of starts of what Italy tried to do. Remember, we reported back, 4 or 5 weeks ago, they tried to shut down Lombardy. They tried to shut down Milan, but it didn't shut down. It didn't get done. Like this, she said, they still went to the weddings. They still went out to the bars. They were still sitting there at the outdoor. They love, if you've ever been to Italy, it's fantastic, right? Everybody's out at the outdoor cafes. It's a very social thing. People don't really live in their houses. They come out at night. It's a very, very social country. That's why people love it. That's why Americans love going over there, right? That's why it's tourism, such a big part of their industry, and people just love it. Go ahead.
So Governor Cuomo has now given his briefing, just got that kicked off on the coronavirus update. Guy Benson, who's a Fox News contributor, tweeted out, via senior GOP aide, Schumer, Pelosi now pushing these demands: unprecedented collective bargaining power for unions, increased fuel emission standards for airlines, expansion of wind and solar tax credits. Ladies and gentlemen, why is that Senate bill not passed? You just heard it.
Okay, we're going to be back in a second with the team and Raheem Kassam on War Room Pandemic.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Looks like it's the beginning of Black Monday 3. The New York Stock Exchange already down about 750 points, and this is after with a $3 or $4 trillion bazooka from the Federal Reserve to back up. And particularly, remember in 2008, the crash started when the money market funds, what's called broke the buck, right? That means all you folks out there to have your money in money market funds, because it gets a little bit more interest than a savings account, which gets zero. When you always put that money in, you assume, you're going to get $1 back. When that broke the buck back in 2008, that's when everything started to crater in, and that's when the politicians in Washington, D.C. got woke to the problem. Goldman Sachs itself, off its own balance sheet, had to pour money into its money market funds because that was starting to go below a buck. The Fed announced they're going to have support of this. And even with that massive buying this morning in liquidity, and we're kind of in another QE moment. I think we're in QE5 right now. The market backed off. I mean, it was down 600 overnight because of the lack of the Senate movement. And what we just heard, ladies and gentlemen, don't like being the bearer of bad news, because I get that, rubric a lot, I guess it is. But Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer just literally lit off a bomb, because what they're talking about is a massive negotiation. They're going to use this moment for leverage, right? To lock the president up and to go to what to them is core issues.
Yeah, I mean, and let's talk about how just silly and completely irrelevant these things are.
Go back over those. I want to go over slowly this time. So
yeah, okay. So via a senior Republican aide, Schumer and Pelosi are now pushing these demands as far as for this rescue bill in the Senate. It's $2 trillion rescue bill. Number one, unprecedented collective bargaining powers for unions. Number two, increased fuel emission standards for airlines. Number three, expansion of wind and solar tax credits. This is where we are, Steve and Jack. This is where we are. Pelosi and Schumer are holding this up until they can get those concessions. And this takes us back to Thursday when, on a call with House Democrats, Jim Clyburn, House Democratic whip, said, this is a tremendous opportunity to restructure things to fit our vision.
Never let a crisis go to waste, right? I mean, they're taking the economic and financial crisis and they're trying to jam through their agenda. And now you're going to have. This is why I didn't agree with Senator Braun earlier. Just because Nancy Pelosi's here, they can word process this thing anywhere. They're working on a pretty definitive. Now he's going to say, okay, well, game on. This is if that's true, and Guy Benson is a good reporter. This is a massive negotiation, and that kind of negotiation on that would take 6 months. Right, because that's the core issue we've been fighting about for 10 years.
You can't even get that language written in time to do some turnaround, and people need money now. I mean, Steve, in the War Room Pandemic hashtag, and again, use hashtag War Room Pandemic. We always read your tweets. We factored into what we're thinking about, like to share them on the show. One of our listeners said, guys, I don't have another week. I'm going to have to let 7 employees go.
This is the point.
This is the point. We need money now.
And that's the key guy. That's the dry cleaner, the yoga studio, all these service businesses that built up. They're the engine of growth. The person that's the entrepreneur that's kind of stretched and going to their personal savings. They don't have a bank line. They don't have any capital. There's no venture capitalists in back of them. Kind of on a wing and a prayer. They've done this, and now they got 10 or 12 people. This is the week. They can't go. Aggregate demand has dropped, right? 70 or 80%. We understand that. That's where the cash infusion is supposed to be the bridge to the aggregate demand. And now it looks like the Democrats politicizing that. And I'm not saying some of those things may be worthwhile for the Democratic agenda, but this was an exogenous event. This was none of these companies put themselves in this situation. Right now, we can have a argument about the stock buybacks. I'm the guy in the Oval back in 2017 that fought hard on the $3 trillion coming back and the tax cut. We shouldn't have any stock buybacks or dividends. Lost that fight, but that's okay. They shouldn't be penalized to keep them alive. We can adjudicate it at some other time. But this gets down to climate change and all that. You're just not going to work that out anytime soon.
And I spoke with a small business owner over the weekend, and who's really feeling the heat on this and worried about when he's going to be able to open back up, and said already going to have to let the receptionist go. And probably an admin person as well, fully realizing that these are the people in the small business that can least afford to be out of work. And I asked a comment about, well, what about employee A or employee B, knowing that they have a little bit bigger price tags on them to try to keep the business afloat, because this person wants to keep the business open. And he replied back, that's choosing to cut off my left arm or my right arm. I mean, this is every small business in the country right now.
Well, and also, listen, one of the things that is so craven about this is that they're doing this in the midst of a crisis. Even the Surgeon General says it's all hands on deck. Everybody has to come together as Americans. And worse than the craven nature of trying to push this into a bill that's dealing with a national emergency is that it's coming from a complete place of cowardice. Nancy Pelosi, the captain of the United States Congress, said she would never leave. And here she is throwing sand into the gearbox from afar. This is just, to me, unbelievable. And really, frankly, I'm going to say it, un-American.
Deserted her post.
They said over the weekend that the problem they had with the Republican bill, and I think they tried to work the language out. The problem they had with the Republican bill, and she was going to have, is that it wasn't worker-centric, it was company-centric. And people made the comment, well, hey, the companies are still the best way to get cash to people in that construct. But here, besides some of the collective bargaining things, it looks like they're going back to their kind of core agenda. When you've got climate change and you've got these other things, they're back to that. Doesn't seem like worker centric to me.
Well, airline efficiency standards, guys, the airlines are going under. There is no consumer base to purchase airline tickets anymore. I mean, what's this? I mean, fuel efficiency. Okay, well, let's start with where's Al Gore's jet? Where's Leonardo DiCaprio's jet? I mean, nobody's flying anywhere anymore. It's all on lockdown. And we literally are going to hold this up, getting cash money into people's hands so we can worry about rules that, again, Al Gore and the rest of the elites are going to bypass anyways. Ridiculous.
Okay, let's go to another topic. And that is, obviously, the question before us is New York City, Wuhan, or is it Lombardy? Is it northern Italy or is it China? And neither of those are good, but what is it? And I want to go back to Cuomo and de Blasio, this massive fight they had over the weekend. Hey, this is not between a Republican president and a Democratic governor. They're actually getting on. And remember, the way this thing is triaged, the support function is the federal government. The management function is at the state level, the governors, and the execution, where the rubber meets the road, the thing itself is at the locality, whether that's a county supervisor, a mayor. So that's the execution part. So obviously between the management, the support's got to be there, no doubt. And that's what President Trump has called the national emergency, called the first time in American history about a healthcare emergency to get FEMA in there. Normally it's a hurricane or a flood or something like that. But it's between the execution and the biggest fight, the biggest turmoil, and we've been very grateful to kind of learn this in our WABC show, is between this huge throwdown. There's a kind of a love fest, at least on the working level, we know, between the president and Cuomo. right? They're always saying complimentary things. They don't agree on everything. President was way make sure he delivers for New York City. He's a guy from Queens. But the gap between the management level and the execution level could not be bigger. And I tell you, Cuomo is pretty – he doesn't even mention the guy's name. You remember yesterday he says the mayor and the head of city council. He mentioned the city council guy's name is just the mayor.
So let's play that clip. Here's Governor Cuomo from his press briefing yesterday on Sunday.
Distancing, I was in these parks. You would not know that anything was going on. This is just a mistake. It's a mistake. It's insensitive. It's arrogant. It's self-destructive. It's disrespectful to other people. And it has to stop, and it has to stop now. This is not a joke, and I am not kidding. We spoke with the mayor of the city of New York and the speaker of the city council, Corey Johnson. I told both of them that this is a problem in New York City. It's especially a problem in New York City parks. New York City must develop an immediate plan to correct this situation. I want a plan that we can review in 24 hours.
So to that point, that was yesterday at 11:31 a.m. and 11:32 a.m. Eastern. It is currently, let's see when this went out, right at, I'm just going to double check the time to see exactly when this came out, at 11:25, so it's 6 minutes to go on that 24-hour clock. Governor Cuomo said he still doesn't have a plan from Mayor de Blasio.
You know, de Blasio's got to get with the program here. I mean, the governor he's got to step up. Shouldn't be any kind of fight between two guys. They got to put the politics aside, just like the Democrats got to put the politics aside here. This is a national emergency, and New York City is now the center of this crisis in the United States. And New York City is not just the most important city in the United States. It's one of the most important, if not the most important city in the world because of the headquarters of the world, capital markets, and so many businesses. I want to go to Raheem for a second. Raheem's still with us. Raheem, I want to get your thoughts on this Cuomo, de Blasio, New York City situation.
Well, I can't understand the distinction here for de Blasio. I mean, he's being given all the resources he needs. Apparently, all of the information he needs. Apparently, we can see the juxtapositions between other places in the world that have suffered, like New York is looking like it's going to suffer, and yet there is this contretemps between the two. Cuomo watching the television, it doesn't matter about the stature of these press conferences he's giving at the moment. We just saw Joe Biden, by the way, do his this morning, which I dove into while you guys were speaking a moment ago, which went absolutely terribly. If anybody's interested, Joe Biden touching his face throughout his entire thing, announcing nothing of particular interest, not very many live viewers on it at all. I think 6,000 on average across the thing. But you contrast that with Cuomo, detail, substance, structure, things that are actually going to help people, warnings that can actually be acted upon. De Blasio and Biden as well in this scenario are showing themselves to be well out of their depths.
If you were told that the option here is that you were either Wuhan or you're going to be northern Italy, would that not focus you? I'm kind of stunned by why there's not a plan. I mean, Rudy's on at 4 o'clock. We're back on at 5 o'clock on all these platforms and on WABC 77 Talk Radio up there, the preeminent station in the country that we do a daily show from 5 to 6. Rudy is going to be on from 4 to 5. We're going to be commenting on that. We have Bernie Carrick on to talk about the nitty-gritty of this. But if here's what stuns me. Why does it take – he should be able to say if Cuomo says, hey, I didn't like the way you talked about me. I didn't like the way you addressed me. I didn't like the way you treated me like a deck seaman, right? But hey, here's the plan. I've got the plan. Here's the plan. 24 hours later, I mean, Jack.
And I don't think it needs to be a detailed plan. I mean, for example, Gil Garcetti out in Los Angeles, after seeing everybody on the beaches over the weekend, said, boom, we're shutting all parking for the beaches, all parking for the parks. We're closing down the parks. We're closing down the trails. He said, if you can't be responsible, we're going to give you a little guidance. So that's the way Mayor de Blasio has to be with the
We need
people of New York.
And Governor DeSantis, too.
We need Rudy to give him one of his 2001 Word documents. Here you go, Mayor. Here's one of my old plans.
Short break. We'll be back. War Room Pandemic in a moment.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Live from Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. on the John Fredericks Radio Network, on America's Voice.News, now Dish Channel 219, Newsmax TV, Chris Ruddy in the crowd, and FM 99.1, 103.9 in Chicago, and all throughout the world on Nexus.org, and IRRS, from Israel to India to China to Taiwan, Hong Kong, Brazil. We want your comments. Give us the comments. I read them every night and send them out to the team. And more importantly, or most importantly, hashtag War Room Pandemic. Become part of the community. For the good, the bad, the ugly. We want your comments, your observations, your criticism. But remember, if you Austrian School, you Koch guys, you Austrian School of Economics, you've got to bring it. Don't be citing me all this Austrian School of Economics. Give me details, okay? Give me details. Raheem Kassam, Jack Maxey, Jason. We got a big breaking news, Jason, correct? I guess you're scooping Raheem, who's supposed to be on top of this, but clearly is not. You're getting scooped in Europe, Raheem. We got breaking news in Europe.
Angela Merkel has tested negative for coronavirus. A little bit closer to home, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz today announced he will self-quarantine for 14 days after learning he'd been in contact with someone who has coronavirus. So you have the governor of Minnesota who's self-quarantining.
Okay, I want to know, Jack, about Florida, about DeSantis. What's the story with the is it college kids? Is this internet rumor, or is this actually a stated fact for a news report?
This is actually true. There were a group of students who went to spring break, came back, who tested positive. Now, they're not saying where these kids went to spring break, and they're students at a university in Florida. So it may not have occurred there, but I think DeSantis is getting pushback, right? All these images that we saw over the weekend of college students going crazy.
But
is not positive.
Didn't Governor DeSantis, when he asked and when he saw it was out of control, didn't he go down and shut down I thought he shut down the beaches.
Well, just today in Miami Beach, they've actually asked the hotels to empty out. They are shutting down that area from all tourists.
Excuse me, giving that again. That's kind of the breaking news thing we want during the broadcast.
I'm throwing it out there. We're getting it from our people who are feeding me.
Are you still sleepy from over the weekend?
No,
I thought
I'm
you racked in all day yesterday. You missed the Fox Den.
Well, you got to get your rack time when you can.
So the hotels in South Beach and in Miami shutting down is actually huge news.
It is actually huge news. But
he has not shut down the state, has he?
He has not shut down the state. But we're going to see this play out differently everywhere. We've said this many times. Florida's biggest risk clearly is going to be the elderly and the old age homes, and can he control the virus in those environments? That's going to be DeSantis' biggest job. So we'll see what happens. The history will tell us the truth eventually.
Is Mara Monahan on? Do we have her? Okay, I want to bring in Mara Monahan. We only got a couple of minutes, but Mara, yesterday I ended my Fox thing by talking about hashtag CCP virus. And they had the great Jonathan Swan interview with the ambassador last night. I want to leave this hour because we're going to get on this all week. This virus is not about the Chinese people, and I don't think we should say Chinese virus. It's not. The Chinese people have been oppressed by this gangster group of the Chinese Communist Party that clearly knew about this for months. And somebody said in one of the broadcasts this morning, a couple of weeks. It's more than a couple of weeks. It's a month or maybe 2 months. This virus was allowed. I'm not saying they created it. We'll find that out over time. But they certainly knew about it and allowed this virus to go. And it's wreaked havoc. It's reached health crisis, medical crisis. It's brought death. And almost importantly, it's brought economic devastation for the entire world, no matter what part of the world you're in. Tell us this counter-offense that the CCP is going on in Europe, in the United States right now, how to tell people how to think about this unless they're overwhelmed by this kind of Chinese Communist Party information war.
Well, thank you so much, Steve, for doing your show, War Room Pandemic. It's the most important story in the whole world, which we all knew when this broke out of China right after Chinese New Year in the middle of January. And over the weekend, I wept and I fell to my knees to see what the evil CCP has done to my fair city of New York, to see it shuttered, to see my friends and neighbors without work, being frightened, old people alone in their apartments. It's next to impossible to really social separate in a city like New York when people live in apartment buildings and share the elevator. And so I predict that it's going to get worse. So in the midst of this, I would ask your intelligent viewers, and if you're watching War Room, you're already attuned that something's wrong coming out of the CCP, to start paying attention to the messaging from the CCP that's infected mainstream media. I am disgusted when I watch NBC and CNN and the New York Times and the Washington Post parrot Chinese Communist talking points and blame the United States government for the pandemic and blame President Trump and say that he's not doing enough. May I just add, the Democrats are not innocent here. They tied up the entire U.S. Congress in those insane impeachment hearings while the pandemic was already spreading like wildfire through Asia, and we could all see that it was coming here very soon. They should have released all members of Congress and sent them back to their districts to prepare, to mobilize, but they didn't. So the mainstream media has blood on its hands, and I'd like them to ask, which side are they on? Are they inside of the American people, or are they on the side of the CCP? You better pick soon, pal.
Let me ask you, Maura, what can people anticipate? We only got about 30 seconds here. What can people anticipate as the information war with the useful idiots the CCP uses in the coming days and weeks ahead?
Oh, we're just going to see more of the parroting that it's America's fault. And, now they're saying it came from Italy, and they're blaming people flying from the West back to China. Don't fall for it. Also, in your neighborhoods, look around. Is there a China Daily News box on the corner? Kick it over. Let's start sending, while you're quarantined at home, send messages to Xinhua, which is not a legitimate news organization. It's the propaganda wing of the CCP. And why don't write, please, to MSNBC and CNN and express your displeasure with the fact that they seem to be working for the Chinese Communist Party. Which side are you on? That's the question they have to answer, and they better answer fast.
Maura Monahan has been a freedom fighter. She's formerly of Radio Free Asia. She's the daughter of the renowned and legendary Senator Daniel Patrick Monahan, who was also a member of President Nixon's administration, a freedom fighter for the Tibetan people and the Free Tibet movement for 30 or 40 years. Maura, thank you very much. Look forward to having you back on. Okay, War Room Pandemic, episode 67. We're going to be back at 5 o'clock with the WABC, from 77 WABC. We're going to have Bernie Carrick. We're going to talk about the nitty-gritty of how the greatest city on earth fights the coming storm. Today at 5 o'clock, 77 WABC, and back on all of our distribution platforms. Thank you. Godspeed. See you then.